rebooting and reclaiming the entire conversation around some of Donald Trump's favorite political talking points, a conversation about the economy that Trump seeks to own and dominate and warp and fearmonger about. And it comes at the end of a week in which, with each passing day, each passing news cycle, we've watched another pillar of Trump's political playbook come crashing down. Take inflation, which this week dipped below 3% for the first time since 2021. Or drug prices, where yesterday President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris delivered that landmark victory on prescription drug pricing. Or immigration. In the last few hours, we learned that border crossings, well, they've dipped to their lowest rate in nearly 4 years. And with Trump's playbook crumbling, consider this. Kamala Harris is on the ground in North Carolina today, as some polls suggest that state is in play for the Democrats for the first time in 16 years. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is off the campaign trail today again. It's where we start today with some of our favorite experts and friends. The Reverend Al Sharpton is here, host of MSNBC's Politics Nation and president of the National Action Network. Also joining us, Democratic strategist Aisha Mills is here, and senior executive editor for Bloomberg Opinion, MSNBC political analyst Tim O'Brien is here. Tim, let me grab my glasses and play you a little bit more of this economic speech that she delivered today. She's sort of speaking, you know, sort of standing with this probably greatest American anxiety when it comes to the economy, and that's the accumulation of bills. Listen to this.
Today, I will focus on one element that's on the minds of many Americans as they pay their bills at the kitchen table or walk the aisles of a grocery store. And that is lowering the cost of living. So every day across our nation, families talk about their plans for the future, their ambitions, their aspirations for themselves, for their children. And they talk about how they're going to be able to actually achieve them financially. Because look, the bills add up. Food, rent, gas, back to school clothes, prescription medication. After all that, for many families, there's not much left at the end of the month.
She has an ability to speak substantively to the anxieties that Donald Trump exploits with grievance and with anger and with rage. And she's also in the position as the incumbent vice president to be solving them at the same time she's running on this message. What do you make of sort of the collective headlines about inflation and immigration, as well as the sort of coordination of policy news coming from this White House, prescription drugs yesterday, and this economic address today?
Well, you know, I think it's worth putting this in the broader context of where we've been since 2008 and the great financial crisis that really upended opportunity and economic equity for tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of Americans. And it was, I think, that's the seismic impact of that event that destroyed people's equity stakes in their homes, got rid of their ability to save money for their children's education, undermined their own retirement. And I think both parties did not do a good job coming to the rescue of average working class Americans who were deeply damaged by that event. And Donald Trump stepped into that vacuum. Donald Trump essentially said, you have been exploited economically and in so many other ways, and I'm here to rescue you. And then in the wake of COVID, you had this massive spike in inflation, and it affected everyday goods like groceries and gasoline prices, and people felt that in their living rooms, in their dining rooms, and in their wallets and pocketbooks. And some of this runs against the exemplary record the Biden administration has produced on the economy. We have had GDP growth, job growth, and wage growth that is the envy of the developed world. But what we have not done completely yet and have not brought across the finish line as an economy is affordability, broadly defined. And it's the same set of things that were thrown into play in 2008. Housing, education, healthcare, retirement, everyone's part of the American dream. And for, I think, a number of reasons, Joe Biden was not able to connect with voters on that issue. And we now have this latest chapter in the Kamala Harris phenomenon where she is grounding these messages in front of voters and in front of audiences, and it's resonating. And I think she has to start to put clothing on some of this. That's what she did today. Let's remember that this isn't a week in which Donald Trump twice tried to talk about the economy. And in one of those conversations, he ended up talking about rape and rapists. And yesterday, when he was talking about affordability, he was doing it from a golf course he owns in New Jersey. Kamala Harris is a good messenger for this right now. She's delivering it in a way I think Biden wasn't able to, but she's certainly building on the successes of his administration. And what she put out today hit on real bread and butter issues, earned income tax credits for working Americans and for families with children, subsidies for families with children, subsidies for families who want to buy homes, cleaning up the building process and regulations so home builders themselves can put more homes on the market. And I think she's trying to pick off some of those things in a very achievable and commonsensical way that is part of bringing more Americans into the economy. I think some of the stuff around price gouging misidentifies what caused inflation. I think inflation was caused by supply chain disruptions, the big government spend that accompanied the COVID crisis. But it does appeal to people who are, I think, struggling. And that's a political message in my mind, more than a completely economic one. But she's hitting the right note.
Aisha, let me show you, just to sort of build on Tim's points, what she had to say about housing.
There's a serious housing shortage. In many places, it's too difficult to build, and it's driving prices up. As president, I will work in partnership with industry to build the housing we need, both to rent and to buy. We will take down barriers and cut red tape, including at the state and local levels. By the end of my first term, we will end America's housing shortage by building 3 million new homes and rentals that are affordable for the middle class. Even if aspiring homeowners save for years, it often still is not enough. So in addition, while we work on the housing shortage, my administration will provide first-time home buyers with $25,000 to help with the down payment on a new home. We can do this. We can do this.
I mean, Aisha, her candidacy, and it hasn't been around that long, but as we've already discussed, you and I on this program, her candidacy is about the future. And she now has this pretty well-formed policy agenda that is also, there is nothing that a couple or family sort of places the vision of their future as a couple or a family or a homeowner, single homeowner, on more than, if it is their dream, this dream of buying their first home. And so to put the policies and the substance and the focus of her presidency behind the message, which is about the future and an optimistic one, is pretty good sort of political strategy 101 stuff.
It's absolutely, you know, as she was talking today, I felt so many of the things that she was talking about hitting my household literally right now. back to school is coming. We have 3 kids that need to be shopped for, right? And they've got to get all the things they need for just going back to school, but then also for extracurricular activities and childcare and et cetera. The same thing with regards to just the cost of groceries. I mean, literally everything she was talking about, including, which you haven't mentioned yet, Nicolle, healthcare cost. And she said in her speech that she was going to make sure that having medical debt didn't count against your credit score. And I'm someone who has had medical debt before. So all of this resonated with me. The piece about the housing and dealing with the inventory is so critical, because one of the things that I think that HUD has done well over the years is provide many incentives. One, for first-time home buyers to be able to get in with a low down payment, as low as 3% in some instances. And then also there are many affordable tax credits at the federal level that trickle down through the state level as well to help developers be able to get those tax credits to build. But the challenge is that gap that she talked about is still for families, working class and middle class families, coming up with $25,000, $50,000 in cash that you still need to put down in order to access buying a home. And that $25,000 number, probably isn't even enough, but it goes a long way towards helping to bridge that gap. Because the fact that, there are so many programs that will lend to people, but then there aren't enough houses for folks to buy at the rate that those programs will provide financing for, has always been a real challenge and a real disparity in communities, especially communities of color, urban communities. So I think that, today all around was powerful because she was speaking directly to pocketbook issues that voters face, that literally, myself, my community, my family, we sit around talking about these issues. And she just tapped into that in a way that, politicians often don't. And contrast that with the guy who was just at the golf course talking about economic policy. So I do believe that this is all going to resonate. The devil is always in the details, but just taking the step to politically say, I am here for you and I'm working on it is all that she needed to do, I think, to knock it out the park.
Yeah, I mean, Reb, there is a distinction and an advantage when you're running as the vice president, right? I think the president rightfully and justifiably had both his record to sell and the plans for the future. She has, really kind of took a scalpel and just put what Aisha's talking about, these kitchen table issues in the speech. But there was also a sharp contrast to Trump. Let me show you what she had to say about the Trump tax.
Now compare what Donald Trump plans to do. He wants to impose what is, in effect, a national sales tax on everyday products and basic necessities that we import from other countries. That will devastate Americans. It will mean higher prices on just about every one of your daily needs. A Trump tax on gas, a Trump tax on food, a Trump tax on clothing, a Trump tax on over-the-counter medication. And economists have done the math. Donald Trump's plan would cost a typical family $3,900 a year. At this moment, when everyday prices are too high, he will make them even higher.
Whether or not she does more than the debates that she's already agreed to is entirely up to the vice president. But this is incredible stuff to sort of take straight to the horse's mouth when she shares a debate stage with him at least one time in the fall, Rev.
I think it is incredible because she's taking his own proposals and showing